what was broken for it.
Oh, baby, listen, man, you want to destroy me before I even get started, baby. Hold on.
Some of my greatest pains came from the women in my life that when I was being raised.
Want to destroy me before I start.
Just out of respect, because some are still alive, I'll just say, I went through some very traumatic things as a kid. Didn't really know who I was. I felt like that I was meant to, I felt like women in my life, that the closer you got to me, you were going to hurt me because of my experiences as a child. And I don't mind sharing by male and female. A very significant person in my life told me that they didn't want me. I remember being told, just some very detrimental things as a child. I remember one of the things that happened, I was a talker, when I was in kindergarten and first grade, and my dad came home one night and he was strung out on drugs. And, I oftentimes say that he beat me for hours, but in retrospect, it just felt like hours, because I was that young. And so he beat me to the point where, I had blood in my little Fruit of the Looms underwear. I'll never forget that. And, when my mother came home, I showed her my underwear, and I remember her looking at me saying, "You probably deserved it." And so for me, what I did not understand at that time was, even at a young age, my respect for women was diminished because my older sister molested me, God rest her soul. So for me, what women represented was pain, was not trusting them, and made me feel like I deserved to be hurt. And so my whole life, Latarius, I can be honest, nobody ever had my full heart. They didn't have access to it.
No.
Because I had metastasized my pain, and the way I viewed women was really from more of an objection,
right?
Perspective.
Whew, baby, listen, y'all were telling me to review this. I got some messages coming through telling me I need to review this, etc., etc. I actually watched this maybe last week. I watched last week quite all the way through, and it's quite an interesting story. So this gentleman here, he's married to a young lady, I say young lady, but married to a very beautiful lady, Kiana, and they've been on the show. They've been on Dear Future Wifey before. And interesting enough as well, I think it's one of the first videos I actually came across on Dear Future Wifey, when he originally had the setup where they were holding. I remember they were sitting in front of the camera and he was sitting behind it and they were holding hands. It's one of the first videos I actually watched on YouTube from Dear Future Wifey. So to see him at this point now, I ain't gonna lie to you, I knew it was gonna happen. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was obvious this was gonna happen. I can't say obvious. Let me not say obvious. And let me just put it this way. And I've done videos like this before and I've talked about it. From a personal perspective, I really dislike, personally, this is a personal opinion and personal perspective, I really dislike when people begin to preach about relationships, right? And what I mean by preach, in a sense of they begin to, how do I say this? They begin to kind of, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to fully explain it in a sense, because preaching itself is not bad, right? Preaching in and of itself is not bad. Teaching in and of itself is not bad. It's usually the tone that someone becomes a preacher when they're describing things that happen in relationships. I find it irritating. It's just me personally, because I find it disingenuous. And the reason being is because if you're deep, you're deep. If you're deep, you're deep. It won't be preaching, but it can preach to somebody. Do you know what I mean? But when you can identify somebody preaching over the subject, I feel it lacks the authenticity that one is needed in order to have that kind of to be something that I can trust. And that's me personally. I'm not going to say that's for everybody. I'm going to say that's me personally. So as soon as I kind of heard the preaching when he was talking about his love for her, at that point, yeah, I weren't feeling too comfortable. I weren't feeling too great. When we preach about our love in a sense of like from that perspective, and I don't know, it threw me off, and also because I'd watched their first ever video as well. So this is not me attacking him. I really do appreciate him being honest. Actually, it's going to free a lot of people who, especially the men, if they listen to this, as to some of the trauma that they may face and might not be dealing with, and how this will impact their relationships in the future. I definitely believe that they need to be able to, have conversations like this as well. So for me personally, yeah, I'm not gonna be bashing, but I will point out some hopefully some obvious things as well. So I want to even play a little bit of the previous video that came on there about a year ago or 2 years ago, even before they were on his podcast. Let me just see if I can bring this in as well. So because there were red flags, but let me just see if I can play a little bit of this.
I had left a trail of dead bodies in my past.
Yeah.
I'd hurt a lot of people in my past because of either generational curses or my own proclivities or habits. And here was my fear, to get to the root of it. The Bible says, be not deceived, for God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, he shall also reap. And to be honest, I was afraid of her.
That she was going to be the one that hurts you.
That she would be the one to be my karma.
Yeah.
Because I've had women to love my toenails.
Yeah.
And I can walk away like it wasn't nothing.
Yeah.
But with her, man, it was one of those situations where I did not know my heart could beat as fast or as deep. I didn't know that I could love somebody as much. And so I was really afraid, man. I was really afraid. And I was waiting for her. She doesn't know this, but I was waiting for her to give me a reason to walk away.
Yep. I'm on a journey to discover, uncover, and reclaim.
So that was kind of like the part of their first video that they did on Dear Wifey. And look, that was a snippet of the situation. When you go in, when you actually watch that part one, it is eloquent, eloquently spoken of and eloquently placed in how he describes his love. And I think for me personally, it's the way he described his love that for me was giving. Whenever I hear men or women describe love like almost in this fanciful, in this kind of, the words are not finding me today, but it's when people describe love in this very fanciful fantasy kind of, it's big words to describe how people feel. Yes, it's too poetic. I start to feel some type of way. And maybe that it could be from my own bias and trauma. And so that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. But it's like, if you've ever been in love the first time round, of course, when you're first in love with somebody, you do get those feelings, right? When you're first in love with, when you first fall in love for the first time, you have so many words, so many descriptions. Because what you're talking about is how it makes you feel. But I think for a majority of us, and maybe not the same majority, I think for a lot of people, once you've done love once and you've done it twice, you've done it 3 times, how you describe it isn't the same as how you described it when you first came around. Because the first time around when you fall in love, there's a lot of emotions and a wave of euphoria, dopamine, cortisol running through your system, and it makes it this fantasy type of love. But when you listen to couples that have been together for a long time, it's not that they're not being happy or anything. It's not that, but there's a realism that comes into how they describe their love. There's a struggle as well as the beauty that comes with the love. And so when you're describing it, it's not so poetic as someone said. You know what I mean? There is some level of understanding that love is beautifully ugly. right? And so when it's described as this magical, like almost like, I don't know if you guys had a Toys R Us advert. We had a thing called Toys R Us, which is a place that, is a toy shop for kids. And they always made a magical advert. I used to love watching it. They'd be like, it's a magical place that we can all go to, or something like that. And it's called Toys R Us. And you just get excited as a kid. You get excited because, they've made it this fantasy, and, you're almost like, I want to go to that shop, right? Thank you. Romanticized view of love. Yes, that's the key word. Okay. All right. And so I think what I was hearing when he was describing their love and their situation was giving me somebody who was excited about the love, beyond, beyond the norms. The norms is like, look, I love this woman, and here's why I love this woman: X, Y, and Z, right? I love this woman because of X, Y, and Z, right? I think she's amazing. I think she's great. I think she's this. I think it's this. I think it's this, right? But then when we start preaching it too, it's like, yo, cuzzy, I get scared. This is a little bit more of a snippet from the first video, and I'll go into the second video in a second or two.
For my birthday, the one thing that I want is for you to be my wife.
I can actually drink. I wanna.
The journey begins. Here we go. I was scared.
Hold on, guys.
So it was one of those messages, and then after that, I knew he was a great man from there, just by the way he came in me, and then we talked on the phone for a little bit after that, and then we went on he asked to go on a first date, and yeah, we went on our first date, and wow.
And what happened on that first date?
So the first date. Wow. So
hold on. Here's a little disclaimer to all the brothers that be watching this. Listen. It's gonna make you level up. Don't be intimidated by this. It made me rethink some things in my life, and I realized that Olive Garden just ain't gonna do. All right, so Kiana, tell us, what did he do?
So he had a driver come to my house, not an Uber, a driver.
A driver. He
had a driver come to my house to pick me up, and him knowing that I'm a busy woman, obviously that means I'm always in my car.
Yeah.
So that was a first big turn on, because it's like, wow, you're doing something to make sure I get off my feet to really relax and enjoy the night, because no one wants to go on a date and knowing that you're going to have drinks, you have to still drive home.
And LA traffic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I lived an hour away, from all the main stuff going on in LA. So that was a big gesture. He had a driver pick me up. The driver took me to the SLS hotel, to the ballet area. And then a butler came outside and brought roses out and said, "This is from Mr. Corey Hughes." So I was already like, oh, wow. Okay. He said, okay, that's how we doing it. Yeah. So he had the roses come out and the drink. And so after that, 2 minutes shortly after that, he walked out smelling good, great cologne. He's known for that.
Smelling good, looking good.
Right, exactly. Smelling good, looking good, all that. The cologne was everything. I definitely remember that scent. And so we got in the car. Then he told the drivers, "Excuse me, can you take us to our next location?" So I'm not knowing where we're going. I'm thinking, okay, we're just going to let him do his thing. So we get to the next location, and then we get to a very nice high-end store. Let's say that. That has
Christian
shoes.
Louboutin, just call it what it is.
Okay, Christian Louboutin.
Yeah.
We went to that store.
That's what it was.
Right. And we went in. He just said, "Hey, can you come with me in here real quick? I just got to talk to a friend." So I'm just like, okay. So I go in and sit straight down. I don't look at anything because I'm not really materialistic at that. So I just sat down and didn't think nothing of it. Like, okay, he's talking to his friend. Let him talk and let's leave. So we sit there, and then a guy comes down with 2 glasses of champagne. And he goes, "Well, we brought you here today because Mr. Hughes wanted to let you pick out a pair of shoes to wear tonight." So at that moment, I'm like, what? So, I'm caught off guard, I'm very caught off guard. So I started walking around looking at shoes to fit my outfit. And it was some black ankle boots that I wore. Then we got back in the car, and then he said, "Okay, can you take us to our next location?" And then it was Catch LA, which is a really beautiful restaurant, rooftop scenery, great food, great ambiance music. He had the driver take me to a concert because that was Anita Baker's farewell concert. Yeah. And I couldn't miss that. My dad got me tickets to see that, and there was no way I was going to miss Anita Baker. I was trying to hear my songs, So he had the driver take me there, and didn't try anything. Didn't even try to say, can you come back here after after concert, anything, didn't try anything. So that was a very big turn on. It was like, okay, he's actually just trying to make sure I have a good time and make sure I get home or wherever I'm going safe. He even offered to have the driver, if I needed the driver, to take me from the concert back home. Wow. And I thought that was thoughtful, even though my dad took me home after, but he still offered. And I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah, that was day one. But he had, I feel like our first date was like a 2-day. So we had it was kind of extended because it was so short due to the concert.
And then the second day, what happened?
The second date. So remind you, this is Christmas. This is around Christmas, about a week before Christmas. So I had my cousin come in town from Dallas, which is one of my favorite cousins, Sierra. She came in town to come visit me for the holidays. So he asked to see me that day. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see you because I have family in town and I'm huge on family because I throw all the family Christmas parties and everything like that. So I told him, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see you. He goes, okay, well, how about you and your cousin get dressed and I'll have a driver pick you guys up at 10. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Excuse my language, but you know, I'm like impressed. So my cousin, she goes, okay. I'm like, okay, girl, let's get dressed. Let's go. We got about 30 minutes. Let's go. The driver's going to be here. So he pulls up to a helicopter location and then we get out. And then as soon as we walk in, that's when they give us a glass of champagne and say, we brought you here today so you guys can take a helicopter ride. So my cousin starts getting her phone out. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like she's taking videos, she's taking
Facebook
pictures.
Live, hey everybody.
Right. She's taking pictures. She's already like, oh, this is cousin. This is cousin. You know, like so she's like
you already got drafted into the family at this point, huh?
She's already impressed and she's never done it before. So we went there and it was really, really beautiful.
You were there waiting on him?
No, he came after. He came about 15 minutes after. So he's been doing really, you know, his way in the beginning is really bossy. He like shows up. He lets you simmer with your champagne, then he shows up. You know, like
it's an episode of The Bachelor or something.
Yeah.
Let it simmer a little bit.
Yeah.
Then he makes his appearance.
In the past relationships, I've always been the planner.
Okay.
You know, I've always been the one that took on that role as a man and woman in times, you know, whether I'm paying bills or whether I'm planning everything from a man not knowing how to plan. Which I don't, you know, I'm not talking down on them, you know, it's just sometimes people just don't know.
Reality.
Yeah, some people just don't know. So that was that. And I thought it was impressive to see that a man can really know how to plan everything out, like as if I would, you know. So I thought it was really, really impressive how he came at me as far as like from the paragraph to the first date to the second date.
So let's back up to a year ago.
Yeah.
I met her. We talked about how I met her. She gave me the business card, which was for me was like, okay. You know, it was like, she was like, yeah, whatever.
She just trying to handle you, right?
Yeah. But I think, you know, I think just to give some context, I didn't reach out to her for 6 months. All right. And in 6 months, we may have had 3 interactions, one phone call after Kids Con. I followed her on Instagram. And I think she would post something. She doesn't do a lot of posting, and I may have just made a comment like congratulations or something like that. But the whole time I always knew. All right. And so once, you know, I was clear from a personal perspective to pursue after her.
Right.
I sent the message, and I just sent a message basically saying, I've been watching you for 6 months. I'm impressed about how successful you are. I've heard the story. Her mom had passed away and how she was able to pull herself up from.
Now let's pause it right there. I let it play for a little while because I had to let it play. I had to let it play so you get a full understanding of what the first round is, right? Now here's my thing, okay? And again, I want to be very, very clear. I am talking from a place of personal experience, so I can also be very aware and open that part of my understanding will also be a little bit full with trauma. This is just real. It's just real. So, you know, and I don't have it like that to put you in a helicopter flight. Just gonna be, do you know what I mean? I don't have it like that to put you in a helicopter flight. So maybe I'm a hater. But I remember when this first dropped, and my first instinct was, bro, you're doing too much. If you do it this order, or if you're doing all of this now, tomorrow, what will you do? Better yet, what will you do next week? Since you started out so strong, right? Now, that was me when I first ever watched it last year, whatever, what was it, 2 years ago, right? Which is interesting. Okay, so, but my major issue is, first and foremost, and you heard correctly, first date. Okay, first date. All right. Driver comes and picks her up. Okay. All right. Driver comes and picks her up. Okay. You know, takes her to, you know, Christian Louboutin. Pick out these shoes. Okay. All right. Now you pick out these shoes. All right, cool. Now you're gonna go to Anita Baker concert. All right. Driver gonna take you there. Okay, beautiful. Now, obviously, after that, you know, we're having a helicopter ride wherever we are, pick you up from wherever you are, right? And all I'm gonna say is, okay, all I'm gonna say is it's a mother freaking first freaking date. It is the first mother freaking date. I don't. You know, you don't get to, you know, you don't get to do, you don't do all of that, you know, and see international options and go internationally. You didn't have that option before the internet kind of hit the way it did. We didn't have the option of looking at things from that perspective, right? You were confined to your geographical areas. Okay. So, but the thing that's happening for me here is all a bit too much. You don't know who he is. You don't know who she is, right? That's what I'm trying to say to you. You don't know who he is. She don't know who she is, right? But what he just said was he had been watching through social media for 6 months and knew that was a woman for him. How? How, Sway? How? See, this is why I don't like when people preach on the relationships. And when I say preach, doesn't mean talk about it. I mean the way that you talk about relationships. I don't like that. Because oftentimes it romanticizes the love and romanticizes interactions, which aren't the reality of life. Okay? All right? So for me personally, I get it. You know, you wanna impress her. But what it's giving me is we're trying, and I think El Cid put it best, we're trying to put a really strong first down payment. It also gives me an impression that there may be other things hiding behind it because, you know, you are trying to impress so much. You're putting not just your best foot forward, all your foot forward. You know what I mean? Right? But we don't even, what was the conversations before it? Because as far as we were concerned, you said you had 3 conversations. They weren't really anything deep. You've been watching her for 6 months and you knew she was the one for you. See, it sounds good. And it sounds beautiful, and it sounds like a great story and the beginning of a fantasy novel and rom-com, 50 Shades of Grey, right? Or sorry, 50 Shades of Grey is not the right rom. And more Mills and Boons, right? But the reality of life is we don't know people. We don't know who the hell they are and where they're coming from, right? So there was a number of red flags. I'm just going to be honest with you. There was a number of red flags, okay? But I want to play a little bit more, and let me see if I can get it.
You know, Bishop Jakes has his book called Maximize
Your Moment. Yes.
And I just believe in maximizing the moment. You never know when you're going to get that shot.
Yes.
But whenever you get that shot, you got to be prepared.
Yeah.
So you don't get in that situation and then prepare. You prepare for war during peacetime.
There it is.
And I knew that from the moment, and this is something that I've never said publicly, but from the moment I met her, I thought about her every day.
Yeah,
every single day I thought about her.
That was in the paragraph. So
now, listen, again, I'm not against people falling in love. I'm still in love with you, boy. Not that sounds kind of wrong, but pause that. But you know what I meant. Anyway, so but the realest thing here is I've heard of this before, right? I've heard of this before. Okay, I've heard that energy before, and I'm gonna tell you why I heard it myself. Okay, look, I'm telling you, the first ever love that I have. Let me tell you the stuff that I was saying. The stuff that my first ever love that I had. This is the kind of stuff I was saying. Oh my days, I was in deep. And I'm not saying we shouldn't say these things. What I'm saying is, once you get mature in love, you learn how to tame and actually apply things at the right given time. You're not so heavily invested so quickly without really fully doing your due diligence, right? So let me tell you. So you might. I remember I said to my first ever girl. I said to her, "Oh, babe, I can't breathe without you." I remember I wrote a poem saying, "You're my DNA." You know what I'm saying, right? I remember saying, you're the air, wind to my lungs, or the air to my lungs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how I'll do life without you. The moment I saw you. But the thing is, and listen, let me be real with you. The first time I ever met that my first ever girlfriend, I wouldn't say it's love at first sight. It was I liked her and I found her attractive and I wanted to be with her. But that wasn't love at first sight. You know what I mean? Like, you're attracted, you're infatuated. That's what it is at first sight. Okay, all right. That's what it is at first sight. You know what I mean? So now I was 17. I was 17 still. So it's like, this is it's cool. But when you get older, you realize, especially they're grown as well. I'm not saying you don't want to hear lyrics and you don't want to hear some nice words. I'm just saying that when you first meet, let me get to know you a little bit. Let me deep you and understand you a little bit. Right? Because what's really talking is the euphoria. What's really talking is a cortisol. What's really talking is a dopamine shot. What's really talking oftentimes is high levels of infatuation. Right? High levels. We ain't even got nowhere yet. Let me just...
Yeah. So from the moment I met her, every single day I thought about her, and I may have gone to her page and just looked at her. And every time I saw her, I was like, yeah, that's it. And we'd never had a phone conversation, but I was like, man, that's her. I'm telling you, I got a feeling.
Dang.
And so that's the reason I said, man, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her the best version of me. And if she's attracted to it, great. If not, then maybe I just missed the mark on this one.
That's good.
And so I just rolled out the red carpet, and we're here today.
So you may.
So listen, I'm not saying, I'm not saying that these things don't happen. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that in a lot of times we can talk about stuff, and when we're almost kind of preaching about it, when we're almost kind of preaching about it, I get a little bit scared. You know what I mean? I get a little bit scared. Okay, so as he said, he been watching for 6 months, and he put his best foot forward and presented himself the best way he can. And it's like, and again, I want to make it very, very clear. I personally think that there are exceptions to every rule. There are some people who have a similar instance where the man told them, "You are everything to me," in the first beginning, and it meant it, and it was true, and it happened. There's a lot of instances where it don't happen, because the reality is, oftentimes, where are you speaking from? Where is that person speaking from? So that's what I would say. I think there was another part I wanted to talk about.
Reason to walk away.
Yep. That's
we were both
interesting.
scared. Yeah, we were both.
So
scared.
you were scared?
Yeah, I was scared.
What were you scared about?
Just by previous relationships and having, of course, dad issues and different things like that. I was scared because I kept getting hurt in previous relationships. No one was treating me to the expectations I needed them to. So I was just very standoffish with him because it was too good to be true.
So what did it make you become? Like these guys in the past, did it make you more
shut down? I was shut down, and I knew that this year was my breakthrough year of my event being the biggest year. And I told myself, I'm like, I don't want to date right now because I want to make sure I'm very happy towards my event, because there's been times while I was dating in the past and they made me upset right before my event. And then that energy comes around the people I deal with in my work environment. So in January, you opened up. What about that experience made you say, you know what, I'm about to trust this dude? Yeah. One thing I suggest is for people who are starting to date in the beginning, I strongly suggest to go on at least a 3-day getaway where you're basically your phone kind of not working. You guys are able to just talk and get to know each other, because that was the time frame where we really got to know each other, our fears, our strengths, our weaknesses from family, or just different things we've been through in life. We got to really know each other to understand how to love each other, or whether it's our love language, learning what's his love language, what's my love language. So just deeper conversations happen when it's just.
Now, can I be honest with you? You do not need a 3-day getaway to do that. You do not. Love you, Kiana, and I think you're amazing. I think you're beautiful, and I think you're very, very talented. But we don't need 3 days to do that. We do not need 3-day getaway to resolve those issues. Like, we don't. Okay, you don't. Okay, you don't. You don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need a 3-day getaway. Okay. So personally, I wouldn't suggest that. You don't know who this person is from Adam. From a safety perspective, I wouldn't say go on a 3-day thing if it's too early. I would say have these personally, I think these conversations should be pre-dating you going on a date. But hey, we're in a generation we go on dates. Okay. So I would say, listen, have those conversations really early. You know, have a set of conversations, have a set of questions that you got ready, you know what I mean? And, you know, in time, you know, because going on a 3-day trip, no phones, nothing like that. Yes, it's great. But again, the euphoria and the excitement of the trip can have you missing things, because it's such a, you ever had holiday fever? You know, anyone have any holiday fever? Anybody else had holiday fever? Holiday fever is when you go on a holiday and you catch a fever. And when I mean fever, I mean talking about you start looking at people and you meet somebody and it's like, oh my gosh, you could be so amazing. You get back home and you realize this ain't gonna work. Okay, this ain't gonna work, right? Holiday romance is what I should call it, right? You can be on holiday and you be there and everything's just going boom. And then when you get back home and you're like, how do I give this guy a chance or this girl a chance? She's crazy. You know what I mean? So I'm saying again, and this is what happens with the first date. And I'm saying this from a perspective of somebody, I genuinely don't think he was lying. Like I want to make it very, very clear. He generally isn't lying. I don't think he wanted to marry her to abuse her. I don't think he's a narcissist. I know a lot of people want to say that. No, I don't think he's a narcissist at all. What I think he is naive, right? And many of us as people are naive to the trauma that we have within ourselves, right? And it's funny because literally I was having a conversation with somebody, and as we were talking, it's the first time that I've really acknowledged it. Like I heard the voice in my head go, you're bonding over trauma. Don't ever think about getting into a relationship. And I was like, oh, snap. What was that voice? What was that voice? Right? And this is quite recent. So I was like, wait, what was that voice? And I realized it's the training. It is the constant you having to heal and learn and grow. You start to hear the voice very clearly. It's not everyone that you get in contact with. It's not everyone that you enjoy. It's not everyone who you find attractive. It's not everyone who you even have sex with is actually the person that you're meant to be with. And actually, you got to save yourself because you hear this voice. And I mean, I've heard the voice previously, but I think I've heard it in a more God voice. This one was the first time I heard it, God coming through psychology. Like God telling me, son, what you've been reading, this is the time to use it. Okay. This is what I mean. Use the wisdom I told you about. I gave you some books. You read it. Now deep it. And so I heard it and I was like, whoa, yeah, don't do that. Don't lie to yourself. All right. Don't lie to yourself. Don't pretend. Don't ignore. And don't proceed forward. Stay where you are. Now I wasn't going to proceed anyway, but the voice still let me know that just in case you're thinking about it, don't think about it. Just in case you're thinking about it, don't think about it. If you think about it, don't even think about it. You know? And the reality is a lot of times we are carrying stuff and we need to be honest with ourselves that this is actually truly not the kind of connection I actually thought it was. But because I'm getting something out of it, I'm being swooned, I'm being swept up in my emotional thoughts, I'm getting excited by the dates and the flying out and the 3-day getaways and all that kind of stuff, you know. And so for even, and I'm talking from his perspective even, right? Not even for her, but in general.
You two alone with no interruption.
What makes you grab his hand like that?
Because I love him. And it just reminded me of the conversations we had, because we had very deep conversations that opened me up as far as different trauma I've had, dealing with father issues and different things like that, or just trauma from me losing my mother 2 years ago, or just grieving in all the different things he's dealing with or I'm dealing with. That was a very deep conversation.
I met your stepfather the other day.
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
Cool dude. When I say I like that dude, when I say Corey,
where are you really? Who are you really with? You know, and I'm just like, oh my God, my son loves to see me.
With her father called.
Yeah.
Her. And I know, and it caused issues in our relationship in the beginning, you know, because she is adamant. There's a fear factor of someone not making her priority.
Yes.
You know, and I remember there was a time where, you know, we kind of got into it about, you know, some things that I was doing to protect her. But while I was trying to protect her, she felt as if I was trying to hide her. And so, but I made a commitment I told her the other day, man, we was laying on the couch the other day and she was in tears. And I looked at her and I just grabbed her close and I said, you don't have to be strong anymore.
Ooh, there it is.
You don't have to be tough.
I'm done.
I got you.
When I say that's so important, see, because so much is invested in the Black woman being so strong. And unfortunately, y'all had to be strong because y'all had to be, because there were no strong men to hold you up and to support you and cover you. And you get caught up in this.
Yeah.
What were you seeing that made you say that?
I see her, even on this podcast, trying to protect and cover
her dad,
the pain from her father.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Because she loves him and he's disappointed her so many times in life. And I don't want to be that disappointment. You know, I remember telling her one time, sweetie, I'm not your dad. Yeah. I'm not gonna be your dad. And that's not a disrespect to him.
That's just fact.
Nigga he ended up being the dad, so you know. Woo! Let me tell you something. Let me tell you a little something. Look, and I'm gonna come to the forward. I'm gonna come forward to 2023. So, look, let me be real with you, okay? You know, I hear him. You know, he saw the pain that her father had inflicted, etc., etc. What is interesting, and if you watch it yourself when you go through it, it's interesting how much or how easy he talks about protecting her from her own trauma, etc., etc. What we don't really hear is, and throughout the course of this conversation, is how he's protected or she protects him from his own trauma. Now, the reason why I said we don't hear much, and why I believe that's important about hearing her protect him from his trauma of his parental aspect, okay? Bomba Clot. I didn't even know that. Bomba Clot. Terry Sherrill, you got to point me to that. When did that happen? But I will discuss that in a second. But, you know, and the reason why I said that, it's not because she needs to protect him from his trauma. I'm not expecting her to protect him from his trauma. What I'm saying is, notice how he talks about protecting her from her trauma. But the reverse isn't said. And I believe the reason why the reverse isn't said is because it's not been discussed as in depth. His trauma has not been revealed the same way her trauma has been revealed. So I'm not saying that she needs to protect him from his trauma. No. Nobody's protecting anybody from their trauma. What I'm saying is, but notice how he described protecting her from a trauma, because really and truly, what it really about is protecting yourself from your own trauma. What you couldn't do, you trying to do what someone else couldn't do for you, in a sense, which is often how the savior complex gets created. and I'm very much aware of this because I carried the savior complex for a very long time. You talk about how I'm going to protect this person from this, protect from the back. Are you letting them protect you? And when I say protect, what I really mean is, have you allowed them inside to where you're at? Because it's easy to spot where she is. Okay, it's easy to spot where her trauma is, but did you allow her into where your trauma was? So you know what I mean? Because then what's happening is you're saving her without realizing you need saving too. And when I say saving, I'm using a word here, which is, I'm not literally saving. We're not really saying that. Okay. But what we're really discussing is saying you allowing the other person also to support you in yours. Now, you can only do that when you become very conscious and very aware, and you have some level of grip over your own trauma, right? So when I say about supporting, what I really want you to understand is, do you allow her to know what yours is going on? You know what I mean? Because that person also has to take into consideration what you've been through and whether they want to continue with what you've gone through, right? And how it affects you, you know. Just saying, you know, it'd be real, you know. Just saying, it'd be real. So, sorry. Let's
X.
It is just that I care about her so much that I don't want to emulate that pain in any way. You know, when I was growing up, my dad was addicted to drugs. My dad was physically abusive. And I remember my mom working 2 and 3 jobs, going to school, and she sacrificed her life to provide for us. And I remember as a young boy, I used to always say, man, I wish somebody would come along and help my mom and take care of my mother and get it to the place where she doesn't have to be Superman and Superwoman. And what I could not do for my mother, I made a commitment to do for her.
This is the Dear Future Wifey podcast where we believe in staying lit.
And this is where the imbalance comes from, because if you don't become aware of your complex, it will do you dirty. It will do you dirty, because what he's describing there is not being able to do for his mom, but making sure he does for his wife. And if there's no balance involved, you can overcompensate, right? That's just the reality of things. If you don't find a balance and you're not aware of, you know, that deficiency that you had then, it will supplant itself in a new relationship. You know what I mean? So again, that's why that savior aspect comes in, and why relationships tend to kind of crumble, because so long as she needs saving, you're good. When she doesn't, it all gonna fall apart. Right? But the reality is, as you're trying to save her, you realize you're not Superman, you're Clark Kent. Right? And your frailties then become exposed. Okay? So it's one of those ones again. You know. But yes, I didn't know, but just to give it clear, was he really in a relationship? Terry, I need a timestamp, because going back is mad. I need a timestamp. You know, I need a timestamp. So Terry, give me if you got a timestamp for that video, I will go back and play it. Because I didn't hear that, so I don't even know. He's in the middle of a relationship when it happened. Thank you, Terry. Find a timestamp for me, and we'll play that clip as well, because that's a madness. If he was in a relationship when he was saying all of this stuff, that's the red flags just keep mounting up, baby. They keep mounting up, you know. And I'm not even talking for her. I'm just talking for him in general. Like, not looking at yourself as to what you're doing, you know. I want to just, you know, I want to see if I can, when the one comes, I want to be able to discuss. There's a part where I knew it was red flag. I just want to be able to play it. I don't know where it was. Hold on.
And that I've got plans for you. As a matter of fact, before you came out of your mother's womb, I knew you. I say all of that to say that she was not the one that got away. She was the one that opened the door to the way. Right. So when I met this young lady.
See this stuff? That stuff right there, that be frustrating me. That stuff right, see that kind of stuff right there? That stuff frustrated me. It frustrates me. Okay, that be frustrating. Yeah. So I'm gonna be real with you. Stuff like this is what be frustrate me. It's like it's relationships are not that this poetic thing that we like to do. You know, he said, "Hey, you know, the one my ex that got away. You know, I realized she wasn't the one that got away, but she's the one that made away." It's like you're preaching, and this is not it. Okay. That's all. You know, that's an 8 bar. And I'm at that point, I'm like, yeah, I can't trust you because you're doing 8 bars, right? You're doing 8 bars, and I don't like 8 bars when we're talking about real love. You know what I mean? I can't. And so when I hear brothers and sisters, this is brothers or sisters dropping them 8 bars when it comes to relationship, I'm like, I don't think either you haven't experienced nothing or you got some badass behavior. Someone said, man said charlatan behavior, fake deep spiritual hustler. You know what I mean? So it's too smooth.
I fell in love with her. I started loving her in a way that I had never loved before. And I thought that was it. But God said, no, that's not it. I'm opening up a portal in your heart so that when the one actually comes, you've been conditioned and you know that you're capable to love in that manner.
She was your John the Baptist.
Understand that. Follow me. She was the one that was saying, make way because Kiana is coming.
Yes.
And so I never want to fumble this ball. And not like she's a football, but in a sports analogy, I never want to fumble her heart.
Yeah.
I never want to make her feel insecure.
I hear that. Now I want to get to a part. There's a story I want to get to.
You know, and XYZ, and I don't know what all she said.
I mean, I was.
Oh wait, hold on. Is this a story?
Some habits that I had to break.
Yep.
And some accountability that I had to be held to. And so there were relationships that were hanging in the balance that were not past the 60 days, but were very close.
Yeah.
Right. And so what happened is I was protesting. I went to jail.
Yeah. Listen to the story.
She came she was on the plane to come get me. I mean, not to come get me, but to come see me.
Right.
She lands, finds out I'm in jail. She comes to the jail, and I won't mention any names, but there's a young lady there that she knows of as a friend of mine. So she says, hey, I'm Corey's girlfriend, and I want to find out XYZ, you know, when is he getting out, so forth and so on. And the young lady reaches down in her purse and pulls out the pass and says, well, I'm with Corey too, you know, and XYZ. And I don't know what all she said, but it was, I heard about it while I was in jail. So you can imagine
So he's in jail for basically protesting. He was protesting during, I think, Black Lives Matter season, right? Protesting, and then he got put in prison for something, right? So nothing crazy. The prison's not the bad thing. So he got put in prison, okay, or into jail, whichever one comes first, all right? And then another girl who, quote unquote, is a friend, quote unquote, is a friend, ends up coming to where he at in the prison, who she don't know, and she ends up seeing the girl at the prison. Now, my thing is this: how did old girl get a pass? How did the girl get the pass? Why did she get the pass? Okay, cool. She's a friend, so that's why he gave it a pass. Let's listen. Let's listen to the story. This one I said, nah, the red flags were mounting the frick up. They were mounting the frick up.
Scared.
I mean, so I'm in jail twice at this point.
So
I'm in jail and I'm in jail, right? And so I'm going, wait. This is like the woman of my dreams. You can't mess this up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I had just came back from doing a surprise birthday party for her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was right around that time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The week after.
Yeah, like a week after. And so yeah, it was pretty intense. It was
and
pretty
Kiana,
intense.
what made you trust the process and say, you know what? No, tell me what was what happened on your side? What did you hear?
She booked the flight and was finna go back to LA. That's what she ain't gonna tell you, but go there, baby. She was on her way back to LA, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was. I definitely was. My whole heart dropped.
And you said, I'm done.
Yeah, at that moment, I was just like, I need to go back to LA. I need to breathe. you know, because at that moment I was shooken up. I was like, and then it happened right in front of my cousin. So she was right there with me to feel it all too. So it was just all bad at that moment. I was ready to leave, but the new me now is just like, no, I want to talk about it. I want to see what his thoughts are. And instead of going off, I stayed at a level 2 and just kind of asked him and talked about it so I could really hear him out and hear how he feels. And with someone coming at him at a level 2, because I realized sometimes when two people arguing, nothing gets done, nothing comes out of that.
Defense. Everybody on defense, y'all just arguing.
Exactly.
So what did you hear him say that made you trust him, or did you trust him, or did you just say, give me a moment to think about it, but I'm gonna stay put, or what did you do?
I think he did everything to make me feel secure. I think he knew what parts were my new triggers for me and what he had to do to kind of make it right. And he did that. So whether that was, and I even told him to apologize to her. So I'm that kind of person where I wished her the best. I told him to apologize in the midst of also letting her know what's going on with us, because I think it's important to not leave a woman stained, because then they'll come out and do all kind of stuff you might not want them to do. You know, some women have different levels of crazy, and I don't want that to come out, you know, just because.
So she told you to apologize to the girl.
Yeah, well, I think she didn't. Yes, she did ask me to apologize, but I think
you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think, but the most important part of that is accountability and self-reflection. I learned a long time ago, and this was just a subtle reminder to me that sometimes you could see a relationship at a 2, and based upon that other person's experience, they can see it at a 10.
Yeah.
And you know what I also learned, and this is what I think every man.
Listen, let's be freaking real. Now, let's be freaking real. Ladies, you got to take some accountability here, because y'all be doing this nonsense that we be talking about. You know that man likes you. You know that man likes you. Let's not pretend like y'all be pretending like he's my friend. Like, come on, stop that nonsense. You know they ain't. Now, let's go back onto the old boy, because he's the one that's in the hot seat, right? You can realize you're on a 2 and the other person's on a 10. Well, that's 8 steps, bro. That if you don't deep, they're on a 10. How you not realize? Now, if you said 2 and they're on a 5, I could have been like, but the 2 and they're on a 10, there's so many steps. How do you not see they're on a 10? You better stop trying to play me, bro. Okay, because my boys know you bring that cross SM to me, I will tell you straight, you know it's cross SM. You know it's nonsense. You know that it's nuts. Oh, I didn't know the girl liked me. Yeah. You're a grown-ass individual. You don't know the girl liked you? All right. Let's listen to some more.
And can attest to this, that you can tell a woman that you're just friends.
Yeah.
But that thing called hope,
yeah,
and the aspiration of potentially being more than friends, it sometimes deafens them to the actual words that are coming out of your mouth.
Right.
Nah, Negro. No. Now, what I do believe. Let me dip my apple into orange. It tastes good. What I do believe, there are some rarities where this does happen. Yeah, let's not. I can't see it here. I can't see it here. Right? And this is why, me personally, when I'm dealing with women of the opposite sex, when I got a girl, I put some firm boundaries in place. Okay? All right? I put some firm boundaries in place. Okay? Because what you're not going to do is make me look stupid and make my girl angry because you shouldn't be doing something. Nah. You're on a 10. You're deep in my relationship and you know that I got a girl. The way I'll come out the blocks firing you. Do you know what I mean? The way I'll come out the blocks like, are you dumb? You know I got a girl. Are you nuts? What's wrong with you? Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, the way I'll come out like, are you nuts? Are you okay? Do you not have a girl here and you're trying to tell me, you're telling me that you felt that our relationship was on a 10 when I've told you I've got a girl? What's wrong with you? The way I'll discard you in that moment, if you don't stop that nonsense, right? That don't make no sense. He threw her a surprise birthday a week before. How are you thinking? Your relationship's on a 10. No. Deep it. How are you deep what you're saying to me? You're telling me a week ago he threw his own missus a surprise birthday. This girl is friends enough with you to come down from wherever she's coming from to the jailhouse. And you telling me she didn't know you had a girl. You telling me that she didn't realize that you were infatuated, you were in love with your actual girl. Sleeping with one eye open. Like what? Like you are not about to do that. You're not about to play me. I'm so sorry. That ain't for me. Okay? I'm sorry. That ain't it for me.
You know, and it was a situation where I just had to be responsible.
Yes.
And say, well, listen, I apologize for if I misled, if I led you on, if I misguided you in any way. And I think it's worth being said that she didn't just blindly trust me. You know, I had to
work for it.
Not only did I have to work, but I had to show her text messages that lined up with what I was saying.
There it is.
I had to show her, and not to get too much detail, but the person really tried to trap me up, and them trying to trap me up is really what set me free.
Yeah.
So this person had a video recording, not a video, but an audio recording of a conversation that we had. Before Kiana ever heard the audio recording, I told her everything verbatim that I said without the knowledge of the audio recording.
Yeah.
So I think her being able to hear that, it gave her this maybe piece that, well, he was telling the truth.
That's good.
You know, and maybe there were some things he could have handled differently, but he didn't know he was being recorded.
Yeah.
And everything that he said to me
lined up with what was in the recording.
Lined up with what was on the recording.
Can't be mad at that.
Yeah.
At that point.
See, now that's okay. Thank you, Terry. No worries. If you send me the link and the timestamp for the video, I'll play it. But you know what's really interesting here? That's so interesting. Did you hear what he said? Okay, so he said basically this girl was trying to jam him up. Okay, this girl was trying to jam him up. Okay, and there was a conversation which she recorded. Okay, that she recorded, but he had already told his girl what he already said in that conversation, which for me lets me know that part of that conversation was more than likely inappropriate, right? So he got ahead of it. He told her, my bad, babe. Listen, I had a conversation. It was a little bit flirtatious. I said some things. So, but let me just be real with you, okay? Let me be real with you. One conversation ain't going to make the person feel some type of way. Okay? All right? There must have been some other conversations too. And if you already told and this is something that made no sense. Because clearly she's playing the audio. And so whatever's on the audio, it must have some level of incrimination. Now, maybe not crazy incrimination. Like maybe just a little bit of flirting, like saying, hey, you look good, or, what panties are you wearing? Or, your breast looks succulent, or something, something like that. Nothing that he's done anything, but just kind of saying stupid lines. All right. Yeah. And so when you just say that, okay, right, when you just say that, right, the reality is whatever that would have been recorded on the tapes. You've told her already, she's listening to it, which means he was already flirting with another girl, more than like, I'm quote unquote kind of, trying to make my own summation of it, right? But there must have been some other conversations that were happening too. Right? Why were we still friends with this girl if we're flirting with her? And if we were flirting before, I say flirting, but if there were some things that were said on that tape, which has to be incriminating, because why would she play it? That made no sense. Clearly you talk because you're down at the jailhouse, right? Why have you not got rid of her?
Point is, you can't be mad at that.
But I do want to say this because I think it's important. The look in her eyes that day killed me. Because she always looks at me with such joy and respect and admiration and love. And when she came to the house that day, it was empty. And I said to myself, I never want her to feel like that or to look at me like that again. And so I just made a commitment to myself that I'm never going.
Jesus,
you are the cause of that look disappearing.
Yes.
You know, and so when you know that she loves you, she adores you, she respects you, she honors you.
That's fair.
Where somebody didn't trust you.
He got everybody's number now. He has my whole family, friends number. Listen. He would have found a way to me. So
you've been right at that door. So it's not due to a shortage of opportunities from the opposite sex to be able to choose.
And I'd never experienced that before.
This is without a conversation.
This is not even having a conversation.
This is just, hi, here's my card.
It was spooky. You know, it was spooky because, you know, I mean, of course, you know, I'm very well traveled. I'm very well known. And so there's
opportunities from the opposite sex to be able to choose. What made you, and I'm gonna start off with Corey, what made you choose her?
Going back to the text message I sent her in December, there was not a day that passed that I didn't think about her. There was not a day that went past that I didn't scroll on her page. And I'd never experienced that before.
This is without a conversation.
This is not even having a conversation.
This is just, hi, here's my card.
It was spooky. You know, it was spooky because, you know, I mean, of course, you know, I'm very well traveled. I'm very well known. And so there's beautiful women here in Dallas.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a gang of them, you know, all over. And then social media makes all of them accessible. At all times. And so it would have been easy for me just to be like, well, you know, on to the next. But it was something about her. It was something about, like I said in the engagement video, you just know when you know.
Just know when you know.
And
did God tell you that was the one? Or did you tell you? Because I always say there's an opportunity. We have our own desires and we choose. Did you believe that you heard God say this is the one?
You know, this is gonna sound crazy for the Christian people that follow me. I didn't wait for God to tell me that was the one. I knew it. When you've walked with God long enough, you recognize his voice. The Bible says, my sheep know my voice. So when right now, if you pick up the phone and call my daughter, she's gonna say, who is this?
Yeah.
But I can pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, I love that he brought that point up. Now, I said this very same thing about the prophetess on his page last time. Remember I said about this? Sometimes Christians over spiritualize things, right? And don't realize their trauma is one speaking, not God. Listen, let me tell you, let me be real with you now. Let me be real with you now. Let me be real with you. God is not one to be mocked. He ain't no fool, right? So let me keep a buck with you, right? If he's really honest with himself, you know which voice is God. I told you my stories already. I said in all the instances that I've dated, when I had God, right, I heard his voice, and it told me no. It told me no, but then I heard another familiar voice that said, brother, come on, you know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly, you know, how you feel. You know you love you can love this person. You know you can care for this person. You know, look, let me tell you something. I'm gonna keep it a buck and a stack. Listen, some people ask me why I'm not dating, because I'm not in the best place I need to be in. This is the honest truth. I'm not psychologically and not spiritually. So if I'm not in the best, sharpest point, I'll be honest with you, my discernment, I don't trust me. I don't trust me because I can lie to me very, very well. So, but the reality is, when he said I don't have to wait for God, the reality is you didn't ask him. You didn't ask him, okay? Right? You got impatient and you went ahead. That's the truth. So this is not on God. This is on man. You, like you said, I don't have to wait for I just knew. No, you've contradicted yourself. You just said, I didn't have to wait for God. I just knew. And the sheep know my voice. No. Then you knew, then that means God told you. If you knew, then God told you. Right? Then God told you. Right? If you knew, then God told you. So right there is a contradiction in what you're actually saying. Because the reality is, a knowing, when we're talking about Christianity, right? I can tell you a handful of times where I've said, I know God is speaking to me. Like I know it. And when you say a knowing, it's different, right? It's very different. There's an assurity. You don't have to question it. It just is. But that's God then. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And knowing is God. It's not of man. So if you tell me that you know God, that you knew, then you can't say that, no, I didn't wait for God. No, you did wait for God then. And God told you that. Oh, sorry, apologies. And God did tell you that. So the reality is you probably didn't hear God. You're throwing God into it to make it look spicy. But the reality is you didn't hear God. You know what I mean? Because I can tell you straight, when I went to date on one of my other girls, I heard the Lord say to me quite clearly, son, slow your roll down, boy. Don't go any further. Pause operations. And I quite clearly told the Holy Spirit, you're going to have to let me handle this situation. Because I got to hold on this. Okay? I got it sorted. So don't worry about it. Okay? Holy Spirit was like, all right, cool. Do your thing then, innit? Show me that you got this thing. Went there. You understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah? So I can't lie to myself and be like, oh, the Lord told me. The Lord told me. He told me directly, don't do it. Oh, I knew. Right? And when I entered another relationship, he didn't even have to tell me because the signs were there and I ignored it. God didn't even have to even say to me, son, that ain't it. I looked at the signs myself and said, I'm going to go right past that because my trauma was speaking. So, yeah. Okay? Just saying.
My daughter from your phone.
She's going to say, hey, Dad.
Because she knows my voice.
There it is.
And she knows when I'm present. And the same way my daughter recognizes the presence of her father, I recognize the presence of God. And God is love.
Yes.
Right? In his whole totality, God is love. He encompasses love. And so the way I loved her and adored her and honored her, to me, suggests that this has to be love first, and love is of God. Now, I never pray, God, is this the one? But what I did pray and say, God, if she's not the one,
remove her.
Show me something so I can get out of my own flesh and out of my own way. I shared this with somebody the other day. I said, man, there's God's perfect will for your life. Then there's his permissive will.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And then you're just out of his will.
Yeah.
My prayer to God was that, God, if this is your perfect will, amen. But if this is just your permissive will, I'm still cool with it because you cover me in your permission.
There it is.
But I don't want to be out of your will. And so if that's the case, then let it rock and roll. Let me tell you something, man.
So here's a real thing. Here's a real thing, though. Here's a real thing. It generally could have been the right one, right? No. It generally could have been the right person. And you know what? Maybe, you know, I mean, he didn't confirm it was God, so he can't even bring God into the situation about permissible will. But he did. He now obviously then said, I did pray that if she's not the one, exit her out my life. And what I would say is, what I would say is that, you know, there are many different things here. She could have been the one. But I always say this, your maintenance is important, right? Your maintenance is important to the state of that relationship. So if you're carrying trauma, no matter how much Christianese, spiritualese, how gifted and talented you are, you will ruin a relationship because it requires health and it requires you to input healthily in that relationship, right? So it's not that she might not have been the one. She could have been the one. But if you yourself are not working on you, you will take yourself out of that blessing, right? You take yourself completely out of that blessing. God is not going to force you He has to allow. There are things where God will, and I say God's not going to force you. I have to be very careful of that, because I'm sure many of those who are Christians in the chat here will tell you they've tried some things and God has closed the door. So did He force you? Pretty much, pretty much on certain things. And there are other doors. That's what he was explaining about the perfect will, permissible will, and downright just being out of His will. And when things are just not in His will for you, those doors are shut. You've done some things, and those doors, you're like, why did that door shut? Right? So this could be a situation with this young lady where it's permissible or perfect will, but either way, he has to maintain. Your maintenance is the state of that relationship. And actually, it's a very good example of our salvation. Now, here's my thing, and you might disagree, so just bear with me. I believe that no one loses their salvation if they truly are born again. If you really have the Spirit of God within you, you never lose it. But the quality and the state of your relationship is dependent upon how much you're willing to put in. How much are you willing to be a receiving vessel to be able to improve the quality of state of your relationship? It doesn't change your standing with God. We're talking about the quality of the relationship from your end, because you see, His end is perfect. The way that I can explain it is, let's say he's a radio tower. The waves that are coming towards the waves that are coming towards your particular radio is perfect. But if your radio is busted, it don't matter what you do. The radio is busted. You're not going to hear nothing the radio is playing. So the reality is the waves are always still coming. But if you yourself are not maintaining the relationship very well, then you can't hear whew, whew. You can't hear whew, whew, whew. You won't hear nothing. Right? So it's not that God isn't speaking. It's not that God isn't answering the question in a lot of cases with people. Not saying that He doesn't not give an answer at points in time, right? But the reality is that oftentimes people don't realize that their radio, the receiver, is broken. And so, look, before he got to the point of marrying her, I can guarantee you, God told him about some of the things he got to work on. If he's honest with himself, God pointed out some things. Son, these things need to be sorted out. This is an issue, work it out. This is an issue, come on, let's work that out. Holy Spirit would have prompted him. Yeah, Holy Spirit don't play. When you deal with the Holy Spirit, He will tell you, this is in your character, is a bit mad. Just I want to let you know, this in your character, we need to sort it out. And what you do with it, He can't force that. Now, there are some things He might force. I would like to say that there are things that are in His perfect will that He might make you end up doing. But the reality is, there are things that Holy Spirit will point out to you and be like, you need to do this stuff. And if you don't do it, you find yourself in trouble. Chi Samuel put a little sign. It said, long text warning. I've known my husband since we were little kids. We practically grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same high school. I crushed on my husband first, but we grew apart. But when we reconnected in adult age, he proposed, but told me to think about it, pray, and let him know if I would marry him. Fair play. Fair play. Fair play. Long story short, I had peace within myself. Okay, fair play. Fair play. Appreciate that. So yeah, those are interesting things. Again, warning flags.
This was back in January, and we had just came back from Mexico, and we had a little situation similar to the situation we dealt with back in May or the beginning of June, where my ex reached out to her and was talking all this foolishness, and she wouldn't answer my phone call. So now keep this in mind. Now I've only been dating her at this point now we're not even dating officially at this point. We just kind of getting to know each other. And there was this moment where the old habitual arrogance came up. And I said,
I know I didn't just hear what I heard. So his ex reached out to her even when they weren't official. First of all, how did she even know? even when they weren't official. Oh, I'm not saying there isn't going to be trials and tribulations, but this is a bit too much. What? We've got Prison Gate. We've got X Gate. We've got Love Bombing Gate. There's a couple things out here that are screaming red flag to me. Screaming red flag to me. Screaming red flag right now. Ooh.
To myself, listen.
You don't know who I am. Forget her.
First of all, you don't know who I am.
Yeah,
okay?
that's the first thing we say. You don't know who I am.
That's number one. Number two, all right, I don't do no chasing. Let's get this understood. All right. I was sitting in my office. I had called her 3 or 4 times. She wouldn't answer the phone. She was very short with text messages, and I understood it. Nobody wants to be introduced to drama at the very beginning.
There it is.
But to me, what infancy stages drama sometimes indicates is purpose. Right. And so you've got to be able to cipher.
What? Oh. Oh.
Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord.
Ooh. Sir. This is exactly what I'm talking about when people start preaching that I find is bollocks. Excuse my French. It's just bollocks. What? It's bollocks. Your relationship is not an indication of your salvation. Look, in your salvation, some of you will have some roads and bumps when you first start. We know. Listen, salvation isn't relationship. It's not the same thing. But we're talking about you dating someone. And he just tried to spin it where, sometimes, drama in the beginning of a relationship is an indication of, purpose. Now you see why I had to go back first before I come forward, because this is all screaming red flag.
You've got to be able to decipher what is drama or what is a satanic attack on purpose. Understand that when Moses was born and when Jesus was born, that the enemy's desire was to terminate them at the early stages.
Yes.
Because if he ever made it to Calvary, or if he ever made it in front of Pharaoh, there would be another level of deliverance. And so what we experienced was infancy stages attacks. And I said to myself, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I'm sitting in my office and I said to God, God, I really like this girl. I said, but I'm not calling her no more. I'm not texting her anymore. I'm just going to let it be, because I understand from her perspective. She just met me. We just came back from Mexico, and all of a sudden the enemy rears his head up. And I'm telling you, man, within 5 minutes, she called me.
Really?
That's when I knew.
Ooh. Won't he do it? Just won't he do it? Just won't he do it? And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say about this preaching aspect stuff. It's a lot of ludicrousy. So really what it is, look, when we talk about relationships, you can't preach your way in, you can't preach your way out. Okay? Your ex, okay, as our brother Life of Bodge has put there, it's a loose end. It's got nothing to do with Satan. Listen, look, let me not say it's got nothing to do with Satan. We can say Satan might have been involved, but this ain't a satanic attack. This isn't a demon attack. You see, this is an over spiritualizing that sometimes Christians like to do. And it's something that God had to take me through to pull me out of it, because there's an over spiritualizing of things. I remember, like how God teached me was to not only look at things in a spiritual lens, but to deal with it in a physical plane. Because the reality of things is, whilst I have my eyes on heavenly things, the Bible also lets me know that I'm in the world, but I'm not a part of it. Meaning I'm gonna have to work with the circumstances, the circumstances that I'm in at the moment, right? So when I'm in an environment, I still have to pay attention physically. I cannot make it all spiritual, because when I make it all spiritual, I forget that we're on an earthly plane and I'm dealing with earthly beings, even though they are spiritual. You know what I mean? It's like almost saying to somebody, you don't need sex because you are seated in heavenly places. You don't need food because you are seated in heavenly places. Huh? Because why do you need food? Didn't Peter tell the man that was hungry that he needed money? Silver and gold I have none, but the Lord Jesus I have. You gonna spiritualize everything? When the reality is, the Bible also tells us in James about, when we're talking about faith without works, that, it's all well and good to tell your brother it's all well and good, but if he needs a shoe, give him the shoe. So my thing here is, this section of the particular video has it's gone from bad to worse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this section of the video has gone from terrible. Like, you know what I mean? Like, terrible. You know what I mean? It's gone bad. So I'm like, oh, it's a bit mad. Okay.
What made you call?
Just more so giving it a fair shot, as far as I know, like I said, I know things don't come squeaky clean in the beginning, and obviously he's a good man. So I know it's going to be a hurtful thing to leave him, to come to the reality of that it's not your man anymore, let's say. So I was just trying to come from an understanding point and just try to really work through it and understand that it was still the early stages and that I still wanted to work on it and work through it. I didn't feel like it was something that was going to be a deal breaker, because of how he treated me, and his words and his actions showed differently from what I was hearing from her, so how consistent he was. And like I said, his actions made me make that decision.
All right. So answer this question. Just slide right on to that. What made you choose him?
I chose Corey because he was different from anyone I've ever dated. Anyone. He went through all the whole checklist. Like, say, for instance, all girls have their little checklist as far as their kind of men they would want to be with. And spiritual was one, because I come from a church home, and my grandmother, they was full of head of the mother's board and front row of the church, all that, I was usher, singer, all that. So that was one, and he had that, and that was very attractive to me. And I come from South Central, which is, hood. So I have a little hood.
Let's pause it right there. I'm just going to be a little bit sticky on this point. Okay. I'm going to be a little bit sticky. Whenever I hear Christians, okay, talk about their faith, if you listen very carefully what she said, it's very much like what the world describes when people say, I want a man of God, but they don't really want a man of God. What they want is somebody with Christian morals. But if you listen to her wording, this is me, I'm going to be very real. Listen to her wording. Where did she mention? And we have key terminology in Christianity, especially when you get saved, right? That she didn't ask for a man that's born again. Listen to what she even said about herself. She said, I come from a long, rich history of people that are in church. Where was her own revelation of who Jesus Christ is? See, when you meet somebody who really is of the faith, I'm telling you, when they speak, you hear it. Listen, preach all you want to preach. But when you talk about what you've gone through, then I'll know. Because you can preach the scriptures up and down, but I need to know what your relationship is like. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So when you tell me you want a partner, when I'm saying to God, listen, I want a partner. Oh, I don't want someone who's a Christian. No, I want them to be born again. I want them to have a genuine relationship with you and to know who you are and have their own relationship. Simple. So, and if somebody if I'm describing where I come from, I'm going to say, yes, of course, I grew up in a Christian home, but I myself have come to the saving knowledge of who Jesus Christ is. So when I'm looking for somebody, I'm looking for somebody who has the same revelation. Right? So where you're saying you're coming from is telling me that you're churchanese, but you're not Christianese. Let me do what the brother was doing, okay? I'm going to do a little preaching, okay? A lot of churchanese, but not too many Christianeses. Okay? Now, all jokes aside, when you're and that's, I picked up on that, just I picked up on that. I was like, that is giving, so if he really is saved and born again, and it feels like I've been for everything in life, but I haven't. I promise you I haven't. By the grace of God, I've lived 1,000 lives. That's a lie. I haven't lived 1,000 lives. I've lived only a few within a few years. But and the reason why I say that is because I remember talking to someone, and I remember the way they were talking about God, and I was like, you don't know God, because the way you're talking about him is so impersonal. I don't think you know him, or at least we're in different stages, because fam, you're talking so impersonal. You know what I mean? You're talking like an affiliate. You're talking like you are a part. You're not talking like you are part, as someone said, Terry Sherrill, a part of the body. You know what I mean? So it's like when you are a part of the body, you talk in a way, or at least you explain it in a way. Especially if you've been in there for long. If you say you've been there for a long time, that was like, yeah, you personally, yeah, you might not have had an encounter like that yet, because you're still talking about the church and about your grandma and and not too much you personally. So
good in me.
Yeah.
So the fact,
and that's why the falling can happen, because the reality is when you begin to merge your life with Christ and you start to live it in a relevant way, not just through church, because there's a lot of Christians too who are born again who live their life through church. They get easily misled by people who have church tendencies. You see, because church has its own kind of lingo, its own body language, own behavior, its own ecosystem, and how people can flex in it. That's why so many people within a church who are not even Christians can operate in it, because they don't need to be Christians. They just need to know the ecosystem. But when you're part of the body and people start talking, you look at them sideways like, what you talking about? Right? What you talking about? And so that's why people who are even Christians who are born again, when they keep their mind on the church, and I'm talking about the four walls, I'm not talking about the body of Christ. When they focus on the church, the four walls, my church this, my denomination this, you get fooled by people like what he's doing. Because when he starts preaching, you're like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, oh my God. Because you don't read your Bible, number one. And you yourself too don't interact with the world at all. But the Bible lets us know that Jesus didn't come into his ministry until he was 30. And the Bible says he grew in stature physically, and he grew in what? Wisdom. And he grew in favor amongst men. There has to be some time that you spend in the world to understand it. That's why all his analogies were to do with farming, because he had interacted with the world and he understood it. He understood the farming and he understood how the agriculture was. So a lot of the things were to do with fishing and to do with teachers and to do with agriculture. You must interact with the world around you. Now, of course, I'm not asking you to go and do all the things that the world is doing. I'm saying interact so that you become, the Bible lets us know that the children of darkness, they're even wiser than the children of light, because we don't interact. We don't. We're supposed to be able to know how to discern, and discernment gives you the ability to choose between good and good and God, and good and bad, if you want to call it that as well, right? So I'm just saying, that
he had that in him was like, oh, he got both, and then the fact that he's right. I'm street smart, so book smart. And then the fact that he has his own business, and I thought that was attractive because I wanted someone that was business minded, because I had a business, and just because of our fight for what we want was attractive, as far as he knew what he wanted with his company and I knew what I wanted, and us just the road we were going down to really accomplish those dreams, and it was just different, how we talked, and like I said, the way he treated me, the way he planned things, like that swept me off my feet, of how he, even if it's the smallest things, of just how he plans things. It's just different, how consistent he is totally different. So that's why I chose him over anybody any day.
Wow. Let me tell you something. I am so.
All right, let's spin it back because I got to get back onto the main one in it because that's where we were. You know, we can be here.
Kiana changed that. She changed the way I saw women.
Really?
Yeah, and it was scary.
Let's stop there because you just offloaded a lot of information. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for your vulnerability. I don't know what's going on in this season of the podcast, but it's been almost every guest have shared a story.
And one of the reasons I don't mind sharing that with other men is because sometimes it is stinking up your marriage. Sometimes it's stinking up your money. Sometimes it's stinking up your relationship with your children. It's stinking up your business decisions, your life decisions. And I can be honest, man, and say everything that I did as a man was really impacted by the fact that I was molested.
You never went to therapy before that?
Therapy wasn't cool.
Yep.
You know, and I think what I did is because I did not understand why you would do that to me. I spent many years of my life trying to prove to myself and to the ones that hurt me that I was good enough.
Yep.
So I played sports. I made a lot of money. You know, I did all these things, and really everything that I acquired was really looking back at my past, saying I didn't deserve that, and I'm better than that. And look at me, I'm worth something.
Look at me now.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was a journey, man. It's been a journey.
You keep saying that Kiana was the first person that you looked at. That did she ever get access to your heart? You said you never given anybody your heart. Did she get any? What if it was a percentage? What percentage did she get of you? When you asked her to be your wife, what percentage did she have of you?
Well, I think at the time I thought it was 100%. You know, because of that euphoric feeling that I had, that feeling of being around her and loving her and feeling safe around her. But
see, he used the exact same words we used, right? He said he thought, and I think the biggest thing that makes it dangerous is the fact that he lied to himself. He lied to himself, his unawareness of his brokenness. And this is my biggest thing, because when relationships end, why are we not looking at ourselves to see what did we do wrong? Or what did we not do well? Or what could we improve on? Why is your first instance, even if you weren't at fault, to look at the other person? If the relationship didn't work, we need to be looking at ourselves. Let me just say this for anybody out there. If you've gone through a relationship and it's broken up, and even if it wasn't your fault, you still need to look at you first. Ask yourself the question, should I have been there in the first place? Did I need to be in that relationship? Why did I choose this kind of person? What were the qualities that they were carrying that I was drawn to and I was attracted to? What made me fall in love? What made me want to stay? What made me accept some of the things I accepted? We need to be looking at ourselves, right? So when relationships end, no matter who is at fault, we still need to be looking at ourselves, because we need to ask ourselves qualitative questions to say, where am I? So when he's had those relationships in the past that have not been great, they've been really poor, really bad, why is his first option not looking at himself? Why are we not? And this is where we actually end up falling. So again, no one can be blamed apart from himself. I'm just kind of saying we should be looking at ourselves, right? Yeah, we should be looking at ourselves. We have to look at ourselves, you know?
In retrospect, as I go through therapy and really go through the process, I realized that she had a damaged heart. And so even if she had 100% of my heart, it wasn't functioning properly because it was damaged. And
hold on, you gotta let that sit there. Oh Lord. Okay.
Yeah, you can take a damaged heart and put it in a brand new box, and it looks pretty, but when you open it, it's yet still damaged.
Yeah.
And I did not know it was damaged, because the reality, LT, is that we oftentimes normalize dysfunction.
Yes.
And for me, I learned how to function with a dysfunctional heart,
yes,
to make it look functional.
Yes.
Right. And so, and it's not until sometimes you get in a relationship with somebody that they can.
Is it just me? I don't know if he can turn it off. Maybe he can't turn it off. I really, I really personally still he can't turn off the preaching. It's still preaching, you know. This is still preaching. You know what I mean? Like it still feels like he's still preaching. Even now, after you've been humbled, still it feels like you're preaching. Like even when you explain, and I'm not saying that he's not, he's getting to the bottom of his trauma. So I want to commend him. I'm not saying that he's not doing anything. He is. He's getting to the bottom of his trauma and he's actually explaining. I'm just saying that it still feels like there may be a little bit of stripping back that may need to happen. That it still feels like you're still preaching. And it's like, this is not, I don't need preaching in this moment. Just give me the real. I don't need a preaching in this moment. Like, imagine you're talking to a friend and everything becomes preaching. I'm going to look at you like you're disingenuous. You know what I mean? Turn it off. Turn it off. Right? Turn it off. Right? And give me the real. What happened? Bro, listen, I made a mistake. I ended up cheating. I did X, Y, and Z. But he gonna turn it around and be like, well, you know now, you know, the difficulty of it being is that, you know, this is this. And I'm like, sorry, I hear you, but when you do that, it just looks like you're not actually being fully transparent. So I'm not saying he isn't, but I'm saying it is seeming like. You feel what I'm saying to you? It's almost given like it's seeming like, right? Someone said this is cool. BW4C Poet said it is who he is. That's his call. That's what he's running from with God. Yeah, no, but your call is not okay. Listen, the calling and the talents are without repentance. Abso-freaking-lutely. I agree, right? I agree. But even me, I believe I have a teaching gift. But if every single time I tell you something about me is a teachable moment, as in I try to teach it, rather than being honest, like, guys, I made a mistake. It was dumb. It's just dumb. Just take accountability. I was stupid. I did this. Here's why I did what I did. Okay, cool. But if I'm now like, I'm trying to now break it down and teach it. And when I say teach, almost in a sense of, there's an air of arrogance behind it when I'm even doing it. You can sense it. You feel it coming through the screen. It's like, it's disingenuous. And so it's like, you're not really giving me the real. Nobody's saying you can't have your call, and no one's saying you can't have your ministry, but there's a time to turn it off, right? There's a time to turn it off. Okay? We can't deal with it all day, every day, right? You go and turn the cereal in the morning, but you know how God has been good, so you eat that cereal. It's like, yo, relax. Just relax. So I have no problem with someone's call. I have no problem with somebody's talent, but you need to learn how to balance. You need to learn how to know that you're in the world, okay, but you're not a part of it. This is why I said about relevancy and being able to be relevant. There has to be an aspect of where you're able to be relevant and relate to people. Preaching every time does not relate us to you. It causes a division between us two because it puts you here and me here. And there's no need. We're having a conversation one-to-one. Talk to me, bro. Look, what happened? It's still being summarized as pretty. It's still being made into a beautiful message. And it's like, this is not the beautiful part. This is the ugly part.
Point out that you are a functional dysfunction, and it's hard to admit, and it's hard to reprogram and reverse engineer your life when you've been accustomed to doing things like this for so long.
Yes,
yeah, and so it's been a challenge.
Not my bad, babe. I think this is the wedding that they had.
Married in December of life, where you did something and after you did it, you ask yourself, why did I do that?
Yep.
Oftentimes therapy has taught me that was the broken little boy that was driving your life.
Yep.
And so
again, let's give him some props because he is in therapy. He is working through it. I think he's got some more way to go. He should not call his wife yet. Wife should not run back yet. Let him finish his therapy. Okay. let's not push her to go back to him just yet. He needs to do some more work. Let him work on himself, and she can go back there. But someone's going to say, who am I to say that? I'm going to say from a relationship standpoint, not from a God perspective. Because some of you would tell me, well, if God said, shut up, shut your dirty, stinking mouth. Some of you are causing issues in relationship because you want to always bring God into things, and God ain't saying, wait, stop speaking for God. It frustrates me when people do that. They'll be talking for God. Shut up, shut it. Shut your dirty, stinking mouth. Well, God is about to give a let no man. Shut up. From a relationship standpoint, when we're talking about relationship, how they should be formed, she should not go back right now. She should not go back right now because he's not fully ready just yet. He's still baking. Let him bake. Like the meme says, let him cook. He's still cooking. Okay? Let him cook. He ain't there yet. Don't go back just yet. Okay? They're separated at this moment. They're not divorced. They're separated, I believe. So they're not divorced yet. So let's not let her go back just yet. We need to see a little bit more growth from him. Going before it's time, the wounds will still fresh, and it can be reopened again, and she can get hit by it again. And I don't want you to go there just yet. You know what I mean? Okay. So if we're thinking about her going back, let's wait. Okay. This is not the right time at all. You know what I mean? Because some Christians will be like, that's your man. That's your husband. I mean, he making changes. Shut it. Darling, he's still working on himself. Okay. Right. So I'm not saying that she has to go back, but I am saying that, that there's aspects to there could be some reconciliation, you know what I mean, if they're willing to. But first and foremost, let's let him cook, and let's let him bake, and let's let him do the work that he's doing right now. You feel me?
All the money I spent seeking attention, even the people that thought that I was arrogant and narcissistic, it wasn't that. It was I was trying to prove to the ghost of my past that I was worthy. When I say that I was physically abused by my father, I remember time, and rest his soul, but I remember time my dad and my mother separated, and my dad put a gun in my head and played Russian roulette because I didn't know where my mother was at. Damn. So you must understand, for me, I didn't trust men or women. And
he kept asking you where your mom at. You kept saying, I don't know. And he kept acting like he's going to blow your brains out.
And not acting, Lateris. He actually put a bullet in the gun.
It was spinning and pulling the trigger.
And pulled the trigger.
Yeah. How old are you?
Damn. That's some wild ass stuff, bro. That's some wild ass stuff. Right? Now, this part, I agree. BW4C, I agree. Because before he put hands on her, she was throwing glasses around. She ain't no listen, DV is DV. You don't have to put your hands on someone for it to be DV, you know. Well, at least let me say this: you don't have to put your hands on someone for it to be emotional, to be physical abuse in some sense, or emotional abuse, if you want to call it that, right? So, she got some work to do as well, because the first thing she did was start throwing mugs and glasses around, and yeah, that she needs to sort out. But yes, this guy's going for some trauma, blood. He's going for some deep trauma.
How old were you?
I was 7 years old. So when you, and that's why you have to be careful that you don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, because you don't know what they've been
through. Because you don't know what they've been through. And so for me, I didn't trust men, I didn't trust women. And the only person that I could trust before I knew God was myself.
Yeah.
So I had to build myself up. I had to tell myself that I could do it. I had to tell myself I was great because nobody else would. And oftentimes it is received as arrogancy, but really it's fear. It's the fear of, what if they're right?
Yes.
What if I'm not enough?
Yes.
What if I'm not good enough?
Boy, this is good.
What if what they said to me is true? And it's a constant battle internally and mentally of trying to prove to yourself that you are good enough. And the moment somebody that you actually care about even alludes to you not being good enough, it sinks you down.
You crumble.
You crumble.
Yeah.
And so for me, my defense mechanism was to not care what anybody thought.
There it is.
Because if I cared and you confirmed what had been put in me for years,
you're right. You that person becomes right, and it just reintroduces pain in your life.
Absolutely,
that's a good point.
Y'all were engaged when you met Kiana. How long were y'all engaged before you got married to her?
So here's an interesting thing. I tell people that that Kiana and I got married too fast and almost gave up too soon. We literally from the day that we met, 6 months later we went on the first date. 6 months later, we were engaged. 6 months later, we were married. And so from the day that we met to us getting married was actually 1 year. And it, you know, it wasn't a lot of time. You know, we didn't spend a lot of time with each other.
No, it's not.
And
honestly, it's not that bad. 12 months is not that bad. 12 months is really not that bad. But they were long distance.
We were long distance, and it was a pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, and so one of the things that if I could go back and do it again, we didn't do marriage counseling. You know, and so I think that was in marriage counseling, you don't only find out your love language, but you also discover your conflict language.
Yeah. You're talking about premarital.
Hold on a minute. Why didn't they do? My question is, why didn't they do no marriage counseling? I thought this brother was co-signed by TD Jakes before he got married. Why did he not do no counseling? You know what I mean? I thought TD Jakes officiated their wedding. So why was there no counseling? You know what I mean? Like, surely Bishop Jakes would have been like, listen, bro, I'm going to marry you, but you need to get some counseling. You get some counseling, you boy? And him and TD Jakes are cool, right? Like, I think he can actually call TD Jakes. I think he said in this video that he can call TD Jakes. So I'm not blaming TD Jakes, by the way. This is not on TD Jakes. What I'm saying is I'm surprised that conversation doesn't, if he can, because I'm saying it because not just because he married him, but because he said he can pick up the phone to TD Jakes. So if he can pick up the phone to TD Jakes, I'm surprised he's not like, bro, we're gonna get you in some counseling. You know?
What counseling?
Premarital counseling.
Yeah.
We didn't do premarital counseling at all. So and that was part of that, you know, as the man, as the leader, that was part of my responsibility to slow down. But I was so in love that I just pressed the gas, you know, and I think that was one of
the red flag right there. See, this is what I'm saying about his love for her, right? This is why I said that the love for her, how it was like it's like if you're in a relationship for the very first time ever, that's the kind of love that he has, because you're ignoring all the red flags. You're becoming a red flag yourself. How is it? Okay, how is it that you come to a place, right, where you personally how'd you get to I don't know how they got the wait.
The things that I would change. I would have slowed down a little bit, because I think things would not have gone the way they went if we would have gotten to know each other a little.
So how is it that, you know, he himself, I'm talking about him now, he didn't look at it and go, I think we need premarital counseling? Why didn't he, underneath the teachings of TD Jakes? Surely, or even not even just that. No, let me not do that, because that just makes all the onus on TD. But surely somebody who was in the circle would be like, bro, you're a Christian, do some premarital counseling before you start. You know, do some premarital counseling before you start.
A bit more.
So what made Kiana so
Maybe
special?
because
I know you talked about her vibrancy and all that stuff, but you met a lot of women. You dated a lot of women, beautiful women. What made her so unique for to move that fast?
You know, man.
We talking about a player. This woman got a player to put a ring on it. We're gonna call it what it is.
Well, I mean.
No. What was so special about her? Because you could have just dated her. She wasn't, to my knowledge, she wasn't like making you or forcing you to marry her, was she? She wasn't trying to say so what we doing? We get married or not? She wasn't doing that, was she?
No, not at all. There was no pressure. As a matter of fact, I think it was more so me. I had made a decision with Terry that I no longer wanted to live that life. I made a decision before I ever met her that I no longer, I couldn't explain why, but I just knew that life, I didn't want to live it anymore. And once I made that decision, you know, listen, I run multiple businesses, and this is part of the problem, I think, in my personality, is when I want something, I go after it. And whether it's a business deal, whether it's real estate, whatever the case may be, I'm going after it. That's just my makeup, right? Yeah. And so Kiana was no different. When I saw her, I knew I wanted her, and I went after her, you know, and I don't regret it. I just wish I would have used a little bit more wisdom as it relates to the way we interacted with each other, you know, and really getting to know each other, not just for looks and not just the feeling of being in love. I think your one of your guests, Jeremy Flowers, there's a video that Jeremy has out that really changed my life. And I'm gonna paraphrase what he said, but it went something like this: that you lay down with their body, but you live with the way that they think. You lay down with their body, but who you actually live with is the way that they think.
That's good.
And I think that if we would slow down, because the scripture says, how can two walk together unless they agree?
Facts.
Agreement is mental.
Yeah.
It's not just a heart thing, it's a mental thing. So how do we see life? And I think I was so in love that I didn't stop to figure out, how do you see life?
Yeah.
And does it?
Can I just say, this is probably the most realist he's got. I can't lie to you. Out of all the two that I've watched, he's not doing the preacher voice, the preacher tone, the preacher energy. He's not doing it here. At this section of the conversation, this is very real. Right? So, this part here, he's not giving me the preaching analogies and all that stuff. He's just kind of just telling it what it is. That's what I wanted from him. That's all. That's what I wanted from him. You get me? Get my leg up, boy. Like my hamstring is tight, brother. All right, cool. Let's continue.
Is this a line? You know, and can we bring this into agreement and walk together and become one? And I think I would slow down if I would have been the healthy person that I am now.
So I was privileged enough to shoot the proposal. I was privileged enough to shoot the engagement video. Wasn't called upon to shoot the wedding because it was something that happened really like last minute. And y'all didn't have it. Y'all originally was going to have a big wedding that was going to take place in LA. The pandemic had LA on lock and prices skyrocketing just to pull the wedding off. And so y'all said, hey, listen, we're going to go ahead and get married in an intimate setting and have a reception later on. And where did y'all wedding take place and who officiated this wedding? You know,
man, I was privileged, man. I'm privileged to have a great relationship with Bishop Jakes. And so we were at the Potter's house in the chapel. We had to call off the wedding. You know, we lost a lot of money. A lot of money. Glory to God. We lost a lot of money, man. My God. Anyway, we lost a lot of money. But Bishop married us, and it was such an honor and privilege, man, to have Bishop to lay his hands on us and to marry us, man. And I'll forever be indebted to him for, stepping up and doing that for us, man. So what did that mean to you to have somebody of that spiritual authority lay hands and bless your marriage? Man, words can't explain. The impact that Bishop Jakes has had on my life is immeasurable, right? He has really taught me not only how to be a better man, but a better father, a better leader, a better businessman. And I don't take my relationship with him lightly, and the fact that people will fly all over the country and pay him just to sit at his feet, and the fact that I can pick up the phone and call him and talk to him through anything is an honor. And it is a clear indicator for me that I believe in proximity. Right, God doesn't put you in proximity of things that He does not have you in intentions for you to connect to or for you to do. And so, oftentimes, I tell people, if you find God putting you around great men, that means that greatness is in you, right? And because iron sharpens iron, you don't use wood to sharpen iron, right? You use iron to sharpen iron. And so, the fact that He saw me and brought me up on His wings and allowed me to be so close to Him is a clear indicator, man, that I need to be here today to help other people, and to be a blessing to people. So,
when you would I do to Kiana? Probably a week later, I had a conversation with you. Do you remember that conversation?
We had so many deep conversations, man.
It was a conversation that was talking about the mandate and the requirement that you have over your wife. That you guys can be utilized on a great level because there's always been a calling over your life. You operated.
Someone said he's back to preacher talking. I don't know, my internet is wants to play up just because I want to answer these things. Interesting. I want to skip it a bit further on. Hold on.
In your marriage, see something in you that started.
What makes the ball go? But if you're not sure about the swing, if you're not sure about the shot, sometimes you grip, and gripping causes the shot to go off even worse.
Or you teach it. I thought it was a preacher, and you go ahead.
And so I found myself gripping in my marriage. I had this expectation of what it was supposed to be. Right. And wow, man, I talked to my therapist about this the other day. For me, love was anything you say, anything you ask for, I'm going to say yes. Right. It wasn't anything my wife could ask for, I wouldn't say yes to. But the problem is it looks good on the onset, but the root of it was still a dysfunction in my heart because I had been told no so much as a child that I overcorrected. And now everything was a yes. Now, that doesn't sound like a problem, except for the fact that If you told me no, I had a problem with it. So anytime she had a boundary, it was problematic for me because it was nothing that you could ask me for that I wouldn't do. And that wasn't fair to her. And so I was, you know, realistically, man, my leadership wasn't where it needed to be. I said, yes, defense is to be defensive. I'm like, I'm not controlling. Like, ain't nobody ever called me controlling. I'm cool. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, give reference to why she would go to LA. It's like she's going on trips to LA.
Well, yeah, you know, and that, you know, it was tough, man. So her son was still in LA. And so, you know, we got married. You know, everything was wonderful.
This is the part that threw me off too. I didn't understand this part. So I want to be very clear. I didn't understand this part because I was like, wait, why is she going for 2 days going to LA? You know what I mean? Like, I know her kid's there. Why can't the kid come to where they are at? That's what I was asking. I was like, wait, why does she have to go to LA to see this kid? What kind of arrangement does she have with the father that that the kid is, unless the kid is not with the father anymore, but they are because they mentioned the baby daddy. I was so confused at this part as to why she's going for 2 days. I was like, yo, let's explain again.
Did you come up with that? Did your therapist tell you that?
No, you know, the reality is, you know, my wife would tell me I was controlling and I would be like, what? You know, because I'm LT, you know me.
Yeah.
I'm cool as the other side of the pillow, man. I ain't got no smoke. Go have a good time, whatever. But I think what would happen is, you know, for example, you know, she's from LA. And so, you know, if she would go to LA more than 2 or 3 days, you know, like I missed my wife, you know what I'm saying? So I think what would happen is,
why is she going to LA for 2 or 3 days unless she's got something to do there? So unless she's doing her show or whatever, I'm confused. What's the 2 or 3 days we are going for? Why can't your son come and see you where you at? Oh. Okay.
I would sometimes unconsciously have an attitude, be a little bit more aggressive about her returning, whatever the case may be. And it wasn't until she kept telling me that. And oftentimes when a person tells you something, right, my first line of defense is to be defensive. I'm like, I'm not controlling. Like, ain't nobody ever called me controlling. I'm cool. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, give reference to why she would go to LA. It's like she's going on trip to LA.
Well, yeah, you know, and that you know, it was tough, man. So her son was still in LA. And so, you know, we got married. You know, everything was wonderful, man. And then, you know, respectfully, you know, her son's father is a great father. He's an amazing father. And I understood it, right? I understood why he wanted his son to stay in California. Right. But it now puts us in a crosshair. Yeah. Because now she has moved to Dallas and her son is living in LA. Yeah. And so that's got to be hard. And here's the reality. I could not understand it because I was being selfish. Yeah. I wanted her here with me, but I wasn't patient enough and compassionate enough to understand that her only child is now in another state.
Yeah, for the first time ever.
For the first time ever. She's never been without him. And so that also put a strain on the relationship because, you know, respectfully, I wanted her to go, you know, and but I think selfishly, I just wanted her and her son to be here. Yeah. But the conflict for me is that I'm a father as well. So I understood it, but I don't think my understanding always came out in my actions or in my expression, you know, and so that was a challenge.
I mean, it's a challenge for anybody. So, you know, if I was married, you know, I'm gonna want my wife around me too. If I travel, I want her to be with me, you know, and I don't believe it's healthy for couples to spend extended amount of time away from each other. Now, some people, you know, God bless them. They have people that's in the military where they have to spend extended amount of time away from each other. And God forbid that you have a loved one that's in prison or whatnot, and that's even more extended. But when you have people that have jobs that work, you know, they have to travel and they go home for a week, or you dating somebody that's in the entertainment industry and they're traveling to, there's always anybody that talks about relationships where in their marriage where the other spouse is away from home a lot. This is always going to be a challenge. And it also starts breeding oftentimes a lack of trust, especially when you're talking about a situation where my wife is now going to go see her son, and where is his son? Well, with the dad. And the dad, we clearly, if they have a son together, then clearly they don't have sex together. So all those insecurities start coming all up. You like, hold on, what's up? Y'all spending time together. All that's going to come up. That's all of it. And so but that open communication and having healthy boundaries and having a great relationship with the child's father, whatnot, can create a safe space and a space of trust and honesty, where it's like, you know, and I don't know how many dudes will do that, because dudes, let me ask you this. Did you trust your wife around him?
Yeah, I don't think it was a lack of trust. I don't think I didn't trust her.
That's what I said. You don't trust him.
I don't.
I was about to say most dudes ain't gonna do it. No, actually they would. Most dudes would be like, you don't want to. Hey, you know, baby daddy get first right of refusal. So at the end of the day, it's that type of stuff where they try to test it. And
but let me say this, LT, and I think, man, that's why you remember when me and Key got married, our hashtag was the key to Corey.
Yes.
And when I say that woman has been the key to Corey in many ways, it was the first time that I actually dated a woman with a child that had a father involved.
Oh, wow.
So this was new. I mean, I'm used to being at the HN.
How many kids has he got? He's got 4 or 5 multiple mums. Are we talking about our brother here? He has 4 or 5 baby mums. Is that what you're telling me? You're telling me he has 4 or 5 baby mums. Is that what you're telling me right now? Are you telling me he has 4 or 5 baby mums? Is that what you're telling me right now? Are we saying he has 4 or 5 baby mums? I'm just trying to understand something. Are we saying he has 4 or 5 baby mothers? Is that what we're saying? Can somebody confirm that? Because that's a bit mad still. Oh, okay. 4 to 5 kids. Okay. Fair enough.
And I see, and so, and he is like I said, he's a very involved dad. And so, and she's a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, hey, what's good over here? You feel me? Like I'm here and you there. And like, and so, but that also really revealed an insecurity in me.
Yeah.
It revealed insecurity in me, that
that's fair.
I'm used to controlling everything, and controlling my emotions. But, when they have a good relationship, they're good friends and they're good co-parents, and it made me normalize, right? Because I think sometimes what we normalize is dysfunction, right? We want our significant other to have a fractured relationship with their son's mom or father or the ex. And the reality is everybody doesn't have to have dysfunction to function, right? Sometimes it can be functional, right? And again, that functional was dysfunctional with me. I'm like, y'all supposed to hate each other. What is going on?
Why y'all been laughing together? Why y'all?
Hey, look, man, I didn't like that.
Why y'all go to kids programs together?
You showing up and hey, look, man, I'm out. Like, it's a problem, but we worked through it, man. And like I said, man, big shout out to him, a great father, man. And but it was a challenge for me, for real. It was.
When you look at your marriage, what would be the one thing? I know you talk about leadership. Is there anything else that started to fracture your marriage on level trust?
One of the things I've said, man, for years now is that you cannot outlove somebody's trauma. You just can't. You can try, but you can't. And here's the better way to say it. You can't outlove somebody's unrecognized trauma.
That's even worse, yeah.
So if they don't recognize that they have a trauma that is impacting their everyday, then you can't outlove that. And see, many people watching now think that I'm talking about my wife, but I'm really talking about me.
Yeah.
Right. So
no.
A trauma.
We knew it's about you. We knew it was about you. We weren't confused. I don't think anybody was confused. All right. I don't think anybody was confused. All right, guys, I'm going to pause it here because you know what? We're going to continue. We can continue this tomorrow, the next 45 minutes of this live because, wow, I got to get up and walk. My leg is doing wow. So listen, I'm hearing you, this is wild. I can't lie to you. Very, very wild. Yeah, just don't ignore the red flags, guys. Don't ignore the red flags, okay? If you see the red flags, don't tell yourself that God didn't say anything. Just be real with yourself, okay? All right? Now, we appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. We're going to see you again tomorrow night. Tonight we'll be on as well later on. Myself and Cynthia, okay, are going to be on later on, chopping it up. Okay, myself and Cynthia, we're going to be chopping it up. So make sure you guys tune in for that awesome live between myself and Cynthia as well. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon. Okay, but this what he...
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Yeah, not on my watch. All right. So tune in later on for myself and Cynthia from Ready to Love, and we'll be having a great conversation. All right. So we'll look forward to that later on as well. Much love and much appreciation. Someone said not Cynthia G. It's definitely not Cynthia G.